Okay.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of Creative Chats. And today we have Danny Blackaller here. Danny, introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Danny Blackaller. I am a sound engineer, producer, videographer, technical savior sometimes, given the situation. Doing all sorts at the moment, other than tinkling with my phone. Just doing lots of stuff. I have my own music project called Good Bean. Recently, I've just released a cover of Static X, which I'm going to talk a bit more later on. I've got some original music also out as well, so I'll be able to talk about that more in a bit. So yeah.
Brilliant stuff. So you're doing a lot of variety of stuff then, to producing, videographing, and all that kind of stuff, which is cool.
It's been, I think in the long term, I've been doing all sorts of different things. When I was in university, my goals were just focused on music, because that's all I wanted to do was really record bands and stuff. And then I got into my final year at university and came across a choice of modules, because there was a list of mandatory modules and then there was a choice. It was either illustration or like visual. I think it was like VJ, like illustrated. I can't explain it. It was either a choice between like visual kind of lighting kind of stuff or doing sound and vision. I went down the road of sound and vision, and from that point onwards in 2010, I broadened my horizons and not just did film. I did film, radio, music, sound design, all kinds of things. But this didn't occur within just like 1 or 2, 3 weeks. This took years over time of networking and establishing contacts and putting the work in, and basically just keeping your head down and focusing on the task at hand, whilst also trying to be a friendly people person. Again, something I'll talk a lot more about that. That's very important.
So you decided. So have you ever had your own radio show then?
I have had my own radio show, but that was a recent development, and it's still going as a podcast. Last year, I came across the genre of lo-fi music, which was instrumental hip hop with a chill out element to it. And I started really getting into the live streams that were on YouTube. And then I learned of 2 radio stations that was being set up. One was looking for presenters. Now, I was putting together the idea in my head, listening to all of this lo-fi music, of putting together a show. And then that eventually became Danny's Lo-Fi Playlist, which you can just lightly see in the background.
Danny's Lo-Fi Playlist.
That was back in summer of last year. So I approached a radio station. They agreed, an online radio station. I agreed to host that show, and for a stint between the summer and autumn of last year, I hosted that show, and it did all right. It was all right, and but unfortunately, I took it off the air. But I've continued it as a podcast, and it's still something I'm doing part-time every now and again. But before all of that, I was a broadcast engineer at another online radio station as well. So I already had that experience there. I was just how can I put it, putting some gall into it and actually taking on the mic instead of just doing all the faders and bits. So yeah.
Nice, cool. Where can people, can you find Danny's Lo-Fi Playlist out at the moment?
You can find Danny's Lo-Fi Playlist if you search it in Mixcloud.
And
awesome. And I've also got a small Spotify playlist called Danny's Spotify Lo-Fi Playlist, very catchy, which is also on Spotify. It's a very short list I used for the show, but I'm going to look at expanding it and add a lot of the stuff I've used in the show, stuff I've been listening to, and just upgrade it and develop it, because it's a great idea. So yeah, get on the Mixcloud.
Very cool. Yeah, that sounds really awesome. So, so of course, normally I'd say like you, as you said, like your main focus when you originally started out with music, with production and engineering and stuff like that, what are some of your like favorite projects you've worked on
That is a very good question.
after quite a while? Because you must have had some pretty cool a variety of projects so far,
I
I'd say.
have been very fortunate to work with a lot of very different people from all kinds of backgrounds. That was always my intention after graduation, was to work with as many different bands from all walks of life in all genres as much as possible. And I've worked with folk bands. One particular folk band, which was a highlight, was Fallen Cedars, based out in Yelverton. They're really great, incredibly talented people. And they were just lovely in the studio when we got them to do we worked together on a live session. That was really great. I've worked with metal bands. I did a 2 back-to-back videography stint live session-y thing with a band that was formerly known as Skyborn, but they are now known as Ashen. They're based in Exeter. They were a blast. We did the second live session on my birthday. Well, around my time, my birthday.
Hey.
So that's pretty cool. I've worked in Seth Lakeman's studio for a brief stint in 2012. Seth Lakeman mixing for Ellie Goulding. All kinds of stuff have been done there.
Seth Lakeman. So what was your, whereabouts is that then?
It's all the way out in the North Devon / Cornwall countryside near a place called Holsworthy, which is towards Bude Way. It was a really interesting experience. The studio was about to go through a redevelopment phase. It's still in that process now, actually, but it's almost finished. From last I've checked, this was January. So I don't know where it exactly is now because of COVID. But whilst I was there, there was 2 live rooms. There was like a big, it would look like an oversized greenhouse, but it was basically used for strings and for orchestras and things like that. And that was really interesting, but it was deactivated at the time because a lot of the stuff was done in the main live room, which is where I did a lot of my work. That was really interesting because it was also the first time I was able to record in multiple rooms, which is really nice. Because during my studies, you get used to just recording in the one room and then having to sort people around, and it's a bit like a bad case of musical chairs.
Yeah.
But then when I finally got to work in Prop House, I recorded people in multiple rooms. I continued doing that at the next studio I worked at, Blue Space, and then in Big Red. And it's just saves so much time, especially when the band doesn't practice, doesn't rehearse, and then they bloody show up and they're just so unorganized. And it's fine, record it live, just done. So again, it's really useful for isolation and stuff like that. Nowadays, I still have a studio I've got in touch with up in west part of the city. You can use every now and again, pretty much the same drill, but not as often. At the moment, I've also got a social club that's just up the road, which is it's a really reverb heavy room that I can record out of with my mobile rig. It's immense. Yeah, and doing acoustic songs in that place is absolutely just like unique.
Sounds good.
And
yeah.
It even has its own bowling lane. It's like all you need is Skittles and bowling balls, and then you're sorted. Like, it's crazy.
When you bowl in that area, does like the knocking of the pins down ring for like 2 hours as you?
I've never had the opportunity to find out. It was all business while I was there. It was just like, where's the Skittles? Like, I can't help myself. Like, seriously. So yeah, at the moment, actually, I've got another live session with video potentially lined up with a blues band, Ben Roby band, who are going to tour next year. There's really exciting stuff. We're in discussions right now, hopefully, to do a live session in the coming weeks. We've been wanting to do something for ages, so I'm really looking forward to that. So that's on the agenda. So that should be fun.
Sounds really,
yeah.
Sounds busy.
It sounds challenging, is what it is.
Okay.
Over the years, doing stuff with recording and with video at the same time doing everything without a crew as well. It is incredibly daunting, but it's also really fun. The reason being is that there is sometimes room for error, but sometimes imperfection is good. I'm going to touch a bit on this more on the recording side in a bit. Because some of that imperfection, like there was a band I worked with called Fabulous Weapons, and halfway through a song, I had a camera put on the head of the guitar. I call it the terrible name, head cam. It's a terrible name. But it fell midway through the song, but yet the way it fell onto the floor on carpet, it was still looking up at the front man, even though it had fallen halfway through the song. And there was a shot for about 3 or 4 seconds, maybe a bit longer, that was showing the front man just rocking out, like in the most safest way possible. It wasn't looking directly up, like upwards. It's not like an awkward way, but it was angled in such a way it was just perfect for that point in the song. That even ended up in the final video. So that was a highlight.
a happy accident.
Yeah, happy accident.
Happy
and
accident.
Again, I'll touch this more later on, but happy accidents can be good, but other times it can be very, very challenging.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of work to be doing the videography and the production on the side. Is it a case of sort of, do you just set everything up sound wise, press record, and then sort of run around with the camera kind of thing?
Well, I will set up the mics first. Literally just the mics on the stands. I won't deal with cable set because that's a mess. Then once the band show up, I will do the cameras. On one session in particular, at the very least, I would have done the lighting as well, because I would have switched off the main lights and I would have resorted to my lights because it looks better, obviously. Which had its ups and downs. The lighting aspect in Big Red Studios was, because it was such a massive room, there was a lot of, it was difficult to try and balance the light, because the light was traveling over such a long distance and it had to travel far enough. So it was highlighting one particular instrument player, but all of them were making sure we're lighting up the room enough so you can see everything. And cameras, you'll know from this, cameras really struggle in darkness.
Yeah.
Like if it's dark enough, you can't see anything. And you and I also know from film work how much of a pain it is to get lighting right, particularly in the evening.
Oh boy, yeah.
Like sundown is the most, is as you'll know as well as I do, is a director's nightmare. They absolutely hate it. And you'll have a whole cast just there anxious, whilst the DOP and the director are basically whining about the light and trying to get everything. Or everyone will be rushing around like crazy. It's just as bad in the morning. I've got an example of this. When I was shooting in Exeter for a concept film called Totems, we had to get a bunch of shots done about 5 or 6 a.m. in the morning in the summer, sunrise. And it was an absolute paranoid fritz to get there. And even the director apologized at 4 a.m. in the morning, or apologizing, saying, sorry, we got to get up, we got to get to the location. It was like, and fortunately for me, I set an alarm for just before 4, so I was more than ready for him at that point. I was just stalling. Stalling for time.
The apology was too late by that point.
Yeah. In my defense, the apology was anticipated, because when you're on set, it's not like you're there just to party for 3-4 days straight. You're there to do a job. And I think it's a privilege to be able to be in a different place, whether it's local, national, international, to do a job. It's a really great experience, because you're not just there to just take a few pictures and do all the touristy stuff. You're there actually to do something, and it could be something incredibly unique. And that's what we did on Totems. We shot in these pretty mundane places, but we came up with what I hope was a really good film. So yeah,
that's really cool. Was it worth the 4 a.m. morning wake up?
Definitely. I think it was more worth it for them because they were filming in 4K, and 4K was still quite a new thing.
Mm.
And from what I've seen of the final footage, the grading just kicked ass. It was really well done.
Grading is another area, kind of almost like not quite as bad as lighting, but grading is another area where it can be a real difficult pain to get right, I find.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. This is why I just stick to the sound. That's my forte. So yeah.
Yeah. So you talk about like traveling a lot. Been have you always been sort of based in like Plymouth and in the southwest, or have you sort of been out in different places at all?
I have travelled as far afield as London for networking.
Mm,
I've been to Exeter, Bristol in the name of networking. I think Bristol was the furthest I've been afield for anything work related or crew related, from the top of my memory. Um, However, last year, my little mini vacation in New Orleans, I actually made it more than just a holiday. I wanted to make a special edition of Danny's Lo-Fi playlist, which is still in production, but I recorded and shot loads of video, photo, and recorded audio. Um,
mm,
I winged it on the audio, to be fair. I had brought a recorder with me across to the States,
mm.
but I only got to do a couple of like little snippets with it because of logistics, basically. The logistics of trying to unpack the recorder, get everything set up, and then having to record something was just taking too much time. So I did everything on this phone right here. That's what we're on right now. And luckily, all the recordings I did worked out. There was even a fear of wind. I actually did the wind stuff on just north of New Orleans. There's a massive pool of water called Lake Pontchartrain,
Okay.
and uh, there was a quite a wind current coming in from the lake itself. And the first couple of recordings I did, there was like whiffs of wind. It's like, darn, trying not to swear here. So that took a few times to do, but that came out okay in the end because it
Mm,
was just luckily it was only a weak wind current and it was just a really peaceful area. So it was technically it was a marina, so there was still some activity of people like setting up boats and stuff, but I event my actual scouting I did on Google Maps paid off. So yeah, that's still in production, but I'm hoping to get that finished later this year. So it's just going to be, it's just taking time, mainly because of the limitations I had finding the right tunes for it to
mm,
mix. It it was trying to mix the sounds of New Orleans on the one hand with the kind of chill and lo-fi that I thought could work well on the other, and trying to get the two right. And when I was working on the actual show after the holiday, I think this was like 3 months after the holiday, it was proving difficult.
mm.
So I put it on the back bench. But that's still in the works. I'm hoping to still release that. I've got graphics made for it by my friend Major Wave Graphics. Big up. So yeah, yeah, and she also did the stuff for Good Bean as well, which is
That's really
yeah,
cool.
gone a long
I
way.
love that. I like the cover for your Good Bean stuff. I think was it the song Odin?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that all of the artwork from Good Bean has been literally been put together through apps, a mixture of apps, and it's actually worked really really well. And I would say on the other track that's on Bandcamp, Send Link, that was just like a little demo I did with some samples from Zelda. um, I that I went a bit bold on the artwork for that, and in hindsight, I probably do it again if I could. But if I do decide to do that, it's not a big deal because I'm using at least 4 different photo editing apps that just put all the pieces together and saves a lot of time. But at the same time, I still want to use people like my friend Major Wave to develop artwork for it because it's taken over a year to get the vision right for Good Bean.
Mm,
It's taken 5 or 6 years to get the musical side of it to where it was. I started programming it all in MIDI, and eventually I wanted to get it out of MIDI and programming and stuff because it's MIDI's not a bad thing; it's great.
mm,
But but this was meant to be played by a proper band. So I eventually wanted to start recording it properly. So I challenged myself to write 7 songs in 7 days in 2017. And those 7 songs were the strongest songwriting work I've ever done. And Good Bean was born more or less at that point. I think it was existent within my identity, but it became in true form in that time in summer of 2017. It just didn't have a name yet. It didn't have a vision. It didn't have a visual side to it. Fast forward a couple of years, I was in work and I had conversations with a particular colleague, and it was the way she was, she had put things, it came up with this phrase, "Oh, you're such a good bean," and then it was born. So then eventually the vision came in the end and so forth. There's one particular artwork for a song I've written called Alaska, which is very indie. And I'm looking forward to, I've already done a version of that song. I'm going to do a new extended version of it because it was like 1 minute of like, whoa. So I'm hoping to release Alaska, but in the meantime, I'm working on a 5-track EP. One of those songs is actually behind me. I worked on one of them last night called Every Hour, Every Day. That's going to be on the EP. So again, the tracks are pretty much done. There's very little left to do. I just now need to do the artwork and hopefully get it onto Bandcamp ASAP, and then eventually start thinking about Spotify, because that's what's next.
Absolutely exciting. You've got a lot of different projects sort of going on at the same time, everything like that. Have you found sort of being able to organize them and sort of use your time effectively was that something that came natural to you, or did that take a while to develop?
Even now I'm still winging it. I will say, for when I'm working with other people as a sound engineer, that's as organized as it can get. It depends on the time frame of when a project is going to come up, availability, scheduling, materials, logistics. Logistics is a big deal. But because you're communicating, even in a way like you and I are right now, it can avoid a lot of problems. It can plan stuff and make things better. Because the band always going to come to me with a tunnel vision, and it's my job to turn a tunnel into a junction of tunnels, if that makes sense, to give them options. Because choice is really important, whether it's for recording a single, recording an EP, recording live session videos like I've done in the past. Having options and having clarity at the very beginning is just so important. It's ridiculously important. So, yeah,
definitely.
And also making sure the band rehearse. That's also really important.
Oh, that. I imagine if they actually did before they came to the studio, that would be a marvel.
Yeah, but it would be much more of a marvel in this day and age where people record themselves to actually bring guide tracks with them. In fact, one of the first projects I did at Propagation House, I was assisting, and it was a solo guy. He had literally written all the music himself. He was bringing in a drummer to finish it all off as well, but he had actually prepared the tracks in advance in Reaper, which is a DAW software. Reaper had actually only come around only about 2-3 years around this time. The fact that he had programmed everything similar to the way I did for a time in MIDI and with audio before he came into the studio was, to me, based on what I've worked on before, unheard of. But yet, he was incredibly well prepared. It was a reasonably smooth session. I think we made a lot of choices very similar to what I would anticipate later on. But little things, just things like instead of playing the hi-hat, the drummer would play some cymbals in a certain bit, and just little details. So
yeah, it makes it, I guess it's much easier to understand what they want from the sound if they sort of give you a rough idea before coming in.
I think it's also more important to be honest and to give decent recommendations, because a lot of my job is part being a motivational coach, part being an accountant, part being an advisor. a manager almost, in a sense. You have to wear a lot of hats. Even now, with a lot of artists recording themselves, I still get asked for advice. Someone actually came to me. She's recording her own music and she's filming her own music videos.
Mm.
And even now, she comes to me for advice about things, and I'm more than happy to answer. I think the future for a lot of what I do is going to be a lot of consultation, but I also hope to do a lot more mixing as well, because even though COVID has caused a massive opportunity for people to record themselves and stuff, I feel like this has been an opportunity for me to really improve my mixing game. And from even the Good Bean EP, which I'm going to release, the sound of it is just, compared to what I recorded in 2016-17, is huge,
Mm.
absolutely huge.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It does certainly make a difference, because I know a few a few other producers and stuff like that who will take tracks that they're given by people who record at home, and they will take what on the surface sounds pretty dull and boring into an actual song. So like,
Yeah.
a lot of people can record. A lot of people will be able to record nowadays, but of course, there's still a place for people like you that will be able to turn that into an actual mix, because there's a big difference
Yeah.
between just recording good tracks and putting it together.
Yeah, it depends on the individuals, and if it's a band, it depends on who's the most technically minded. Although I haven't had experiences of this, I have heard multiple stories about how bands will send multi-track stems to people like myself, and the first thing I will say to that band is, "What the bloody hell is this?" Because they didn't export it properly.
Mm.
So it is very, very possible that a band will try and send something out to a mixer and it'll be a complete and total mess, and it ends up with a lot of capital letters, exclamation points, and question marks. Let me put it like that. But luckily for me, for the stem mixing I have done, I haven't had that yet. Everything starts at 0. So at the very beginning of a software, tracks will start at 0, 0, 0, 0, and then go on from there. Luckily for me, whenever I put something at 0, it all syncs up. I hear the song. I can now get to work. But again, others aren't so lucky, because they will get sent something and everything's out of phase and it all sounds a mess, and it's just like, almost like that. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
What's going on? So again, I think it's depending on what people are comfortable with. I'll say that again. It depends what people are comfortable with and what their technical ability is. Some people will have gone to music college, others haven't. Some people are used to the traditional way of just recording in a studio and then mixing it in the studio as well. I've had a few bands like that are not as technically skilled. Even in this day and age, there are still people out there who still don't use social media, believe it or not. Yeah. So when you're trying to talk to someone with Messenger who never even uses Messenger, even now and again, you can have an instant message just sitting in their Facebook, and they won't read it for like 2-3 months. I've had that happen, and it's just crazy.
Yeah.
It is literally that 20% of people that have not, I mean, I've got a musician right now that does respond, but because he is traveling all over the place, he's technically homeless, but he's actually just like traveling around, sort of like in a gypsy sort of sense.
Yeah.
It depends on internet access, because if you're going across the UK traveling and seeing sites, you're only going to have Wi-Fi in 1 in every 3 Weatherspoons or something,
Yeah.
So yeah, it does come down to the individual, and as I've said before, working with all kinds of people, you have to deal with all kinds of characters. So
Yeah.
but this brings me on to my point. Actually, this is why you've got to be a people person. A lot of people think being a sound engineer and a producer is all technical skills. Oh, look at this, I can create all this looking stuff, and I'm being a wizard. But you've got to be a people person. I found that both in music and in film. If you can be a good person and compromise and be a good negotiator, it goes a long way. There have been many, many instances. I think it was even important when I met you. because I met you at a gig at Underground. Even for
You
me at that
did.
time, even though I think to be fair, even though I did have a couple of pints at that point, even then it was really important for me to just to be pleasant and to not be a douche.
Yeah,
Because if you are an arrogant idiot and you do that all the time and you want to become a sound engineer, you're not going to last.
it's not gonna
You've
work.
got
No.
to be, yeah, yeah. You're not there. This is again another misinterpretation. When people think of a recording studio, it's like, oh, let's go have a party, and it's not like that.
No.
What a recording studio is an office, and everyone is there to do one thing, to work. It's
Yeah.
often overlooked because of what comes out of it, because everybody loves what comes out of it. But the
Yeah.
problem is when you're in it, you're there to work. It's no different than an office or an oil rig or an airport. It's a
Mm.
place of work. It's no different than anywhere else. It's just with nicer gadgets.
Very, very nice gadgets.
Very nice gadgets, very
Very nice,
expensive gadgets.
very expensive gadgets, which is why people shouldn't put cans of beer on top of said expensive gadgets.
No, 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 do not do that.
Has it ever happened? Has it ever happened to you just halfway through a recording time or something like that?
Crates of beer literally brought in for no reason at all. Bags of
Yeah.
like cider and beer brought in. Like even
Mm.
in in my home studio, I've started bringing people here now, and I've had at least one client come in with like a bag full of Monster Energy drink and cider and all kinds of stuff. And it's like I am very lucky he did not drink all of that here, because
Mm.
if he drank it here, I would not be a very happy bunny. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But this is the ironic thing, right? The rapper Eminem. I remember seeing a video on Instagram, and it was one of Eminem's former engineers. He was saying he treats the studio like a 9 to 5 job. He will start at like 8, 9 a.m., record, record, record. And then if it gets to like 5 or 6, he just wraps up and then just leaves, goes
Mm.
back to his family. So I found that really interesting because we all think of rappers as these big, arrogant party types. It's just like, oh yeah, drink, 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 drink,
Well, I mean,
weed.
like, you
Yeah,
mean you could
but
label
it's,
any musician could be labeled under that sort of thing, really.
yeah, yeah, yeah. For all I know, name a band. For all I know, they could be bringing a whole party with them. But I go back to my previous point. It can get really fun in the studio. I mean, it's not a bad thing to have a beer every now and again. It helps for me. Sometimes it's helped when I've mixed, or it helps keep people chilled out and stuff. But you've got to be as responsible as you would be if you were going to an office Christmas party.
Mm.
You know, so have a couple of drinks now and again, and just chill, but be responsible. This is how I mean, there's been a couple of studios I know in America where they've had pictures of like literally above the toilet, do not do this, and like lay down the ground rules. Here, I would even be doing that as well, because
Mm.
at the end of the day, all of this stuff costs money, and if drink and fluid and weed and whatever is being spilled all over the place, it's going to get damaged and have to get it all replaced. It costs a lot of money, and it's just
Mm.
it,
And when you're in the sort of creative industries, like just 3 or 4 days out of work can be really, really costly.
yeah. Well,
Mm.
luckily for me, at the moment, a lot of the work I've done in the last 2, 3 years has been kind of like for a top of like 12-hour days. It's
Mm.
never gone further than that, luckily, unless it's been filmed, which is a whole different story.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, tell me about it. But in music, it's for me, it's only ever been as solid as like 12-hour days. So they're very long days, staring in front of a screen like this for long periods of time, being surrounded by people that are anxious, cynical, but also trying to be funny and trying to be talkative, and
Mm.
trying not to be bored, because they've every member of a band is going to be waiting their turn, or they're just there to just like be commentators, like yeah you suck or yeah you're brilliant.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah,
Or they point at something and go, "What does that do?"
yeah, 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 yeah. In fact, that was the contrary. One of my most recent sessions, I was assisting at the Devonport studio I was working at for a session, and the drummer started putting up these sticks that had these little glowy things on the end. I thought that they were like cigarettes or something, like really old school ones, like women
Mm.
used to smoke in the 80s. But no, I asked like, what was that? And it's actually he told me it was like a therapeutic sort of thing that when lit, it emits like um, smoke that's basically meant to um, change the environment to make it more relaxing. But
Interesting.
but yeah, it's the kind of thing you would find in like the body shop or something like that.
Mm.
So it's yeah, it's I think it was like an alternative air freshener sort of thing.
Oh, okay.
Um, but instead you ignite it. It was really weird, but he nailed the drums. So if it works for him, it works for him.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't me. Yeah, so, yeah, yeah, yeah. So again, it's what people are comfortable with. So yeah,
Yeah. With the sort of long days and stuff like that. I mean, something I think a lot of people struggle with in terms of music in general is sort of staying motivated during those like 12-hour periods of days and stuff like that. Have you found
yeah,
that an issue?
yeah. I think in the recent recording sessions that I was assisting last year, I
Mm.
found the biggest challenge was to stay focused at a time when I had a lot going on
Mm.
because I was doing a lot of back office, let's call it back office work for Good Bean. I was working full time in the civil service and I was trying to find whatever evenings and weekends I could to assist on sessions because I was being given this chance to sit in and help out. Um, so focus was one. The other was perseverance because, like I said before, it's long hours in front of a computer screen for a sustained period of time, whilst a lot could be going on around you, a lot going on in front of you. Having attention to detail is incredibly important. It can get make or break.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
so and also keeping hydrated and just keeping yourself fed and everything else like that. Sometimes the bands will do that. I mean, one of the sessions I assisted on last year, we had pizza from Pizza Hut.
Mm.
Or another session we had stir fry. Um,
Oh, delicious.
yeah, yeah. In fact, I was working with a rapper slash singer
Mm.
recently, and he ordered stir fry from down the road in Saltash. It was really tasty. So yeah, if I have those kind of long hour sessions, if I have to literally organize the studio myself and all that stuff, it's like I will have a morning of work and then we'll break for like an hour and then we'll work for the rest of the afternoon and then maybe take a couple of small breaks in between things because depending on the workload and depending on how many songs we've got to do and everything else like that will dictate what breaks can be when. Um, and and sometimes for me, I have to play that by ear
Yeah.
because you just don't know.
Mm.
And I think the other thing to bear in mind is to be prepared for the unexpected,
Mm.
to expect the unexpected, basically. That's another thing with long sessions is you've got to anticipate, never underestimate your enemy,
No.
because nowadays, like bands or musicians could come to me and they've said they've read this and they're asking me, "Oh, can you do that? Because I read this on Instagram. Like you can mic up a guitar cab like this and this. Look, here are the pictures. Can you actually do it?" And I'm like, well, we'll see how we do that, and then we'll see how that sounds, and then we'll do some comparison and things like that. Because again, people record themselves. People look at articles,
Mm.
read stuff all the time. People see stuff on YouTube. Um, so forth. Yeah. So again, so to summarize, it's a bad case of having the right perseverance, focus, attention to detail, keeping yourself hydrated and fed, which is really important,
I don't
and
think so.
expecting the unexpected. So,
That's cool. Yeah, absolutely. Could you hear some water being poured then? Or
nope.
in the background? You can hear. Okay, that's good. That's brilliant. Okay, that's fine.
Don't worry, I'm
Sorry.
not standing next to a waterfall or anything.
No, it's fine. It's just we've got things happening in the background. So
Fair dues, fair dues.
yeah, that's really cool. But that's really cool. You mentioned a little bit about sort of like people coming in and talking about like YouTube and stuff like that. And YouTube and places like that tend to be where a lot of people get information from. There's tons of
Yeah,
really good information there.
there is. Yeah.
Do you find that there's been times where people have come in and said, "Oh, I heard on YouTube that this is how you do this," and you've just been like, "What?" kind of thing.
I've had a couple of messenger conversations just before a session where it was kind of like, what? Um,
What?
what? The producer I worked with last year showed me a couple of things, but it was kind of like between me and a producer. Actually, it was different. It was kind of like he showed me something, and it's like, oh, interesting. Because luckily, any conversation between me and my producer, we were just talking about gear, so it's always optional.
Yeah.
So yeah, but old habits die hard, and nowadays it's just Instagram showing me loads of gear, and it's just like and samples as well and plugins every single day. There's an advert for some plugin or some sample, and it's just
Do
like
you
stop
do
raiding my
you
wallet.
so so do you use any of those? Because of course, like again, like I get the same thing all the time. You get like these adverts for like 2000 sample packs or something like that that you can use and make chord progressions with. Do you use those at all or
I have started using a couple of sample packs, and because of an Instagram advert, I've just bought a wah pedal.
a wah pedal?
A wah pedal.
Praise be God. Is it what wah pedal is it? I'm curious now.
It's a Joyo wah multifunction wah, as far as I'm
Ah,
aware. It is sprawling all over Instagram and Facebook,
mm,
and it's like an 80% off introductory sale or something.
mm.
And I think I got it for like the equivalent of like $20. So it was a steal because it was RRP'd at like $200, and it was like,
Interesting.
and for the
Wow.
one, yeah. So I'm going to be very, very eager to find out what it sounds like once it gets here. So yeah, that's on the way. So
That's
I look
really
forward to that.
cool. Yeah, I've not had any Joyo stuff myself, but I've heard really good things about it.
Mm, mm, yeah,
I've heard really good things
yeah.
about it.
It's yeah, because wah pedals when I looked before were quite pricey. And for me, for the music I write with Good Bean, it's like, where could this fit? Unless it was a cover, like where could this fit?
Mm,
Excuse me. Um, so to be honest, I think it was just more an as and when thing. It didn't. I wasn't really conscious of a particular project. It was just like I do have kind of a need for a wah pedal, so screw it, just buy it. So
mm.
yeah, that's in the post. So next thing you know, I'll probably do a cover of Bodies. Let the bodies hit the floor, because that's got loads of wah all over it. Yeah,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
You do a lot of covers with your sort of projects and everything like that, don't you?
Yeah.
You put
Well, the issue with covers is um, it's it seems to be the flavor of the day in the music scene right now, and it seems to be for some artists the only way to get anyone to follow their content,
mm,
which isn't a bad thing. I mean, some people do some really good, interesting takes on certain songs. For me, it's very difficult because I don't identify myself as a cover artist or a cover band for that matter.
no.
For me, it's 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 two-handed thing. It's trying to continue to hone my skills on guitar on the one hand, and
Mm,
bass for that matter, because I also play bass. But on the other hand, it's the content and having decent promotional content to help the project and to get my originals some exposure as well. So what I wanted to do throughout creating Good Bean was, if I was to do covers like I have done recently with the Static X cover for Get to the Gone,
mm,
was to select songs that I like and I feel like fit within the vision of Good Bean,
mm,
which is not, it doesn't have to be a conscious thing. It
mm.
can be just looking at a song and saying, can I do this? And sometimes because I'm, at a certain level now with my guitar skills, that's an easy yes or no question. Or
Yeah.
even if it's like, don't know, just do it, in the words of Nike. So
Just do it.
just do it. Yeah. So yeah, I've got it lightly in the background. The music video I did for Get to the Gone, which was quite a bit of fun, really. I think it was the one cover I've done where I really didn't take it seriously.
Mm.
When I've uploaded it to Facebook and YouTube recently, everyone took it on board as if it was an actual serious project. It wasn't. It really wasn't. The reason why it wasn't was because at the start of it, it was merely to try and get the instrumental down. And that sounded great. It really came out really well. But then the issue was whether or not to get a vocalist on it. And I just didn't know who to choose, as well as who would respond. So eventually I just gave up and just sung it myself, but just took the mick, basically.
Mm.
So it ended up more of a parody than an actual cover.
Mm.
But the way I wanted to shoot the music video was sort of parody in a sense as well, because knowing that I was going to sing the vocals myself, although I didn't sing them, it was kind of like, yeah. It was kind of like a Lonely Island sort of approach to it more than anything. I was coming home from work and I was thinking about ideas for the music video. So I thought, well, if it's going to have something in it, if I'm going to actually sing in it, I may as well film myself actually doing it. So along the way home, you might not get to see it very much because of the way the lights on the actual screen, was I filmed on my phone little shots of me actually singing the lyrics to the song.
Yeah.
So I did that for the entire song along this walk from in this neighborhood in Crown Hill all the way down to Hartley. And eventually that went into the video. And it was, excuse me, it was my original plan to upload the video months before when I did. But I felt like there wasn't enough video to actually edit together and create something in full. So I reshot in my back garden during this. I mean, I shot the walking footage before the COVID-19 lockdown, but I started doing the actual garden footage, which makes up the bulk of the video. That was 2-3 weeks ago. Again, to try and fill the holes and make it more of a proper music video, which, again, this was all improv. So it was just literally no crew, just one person, me, shooting actually the actual shots, being in front of the camera, me singing, actually doing the vocally bits, taking a mic, pretty much being a one-man show. It was a really interesting experience. I probably would do it again, but I think going forward, I would rather have someone do vocals. So at the moment, I've got vocalists in mind for several covers I'm doing, and I'm working on the originals because they need lyrics, and as you know, with original songs, you need a story.
Yeah.
At the moment, the stories I've got are more from my covers. There's one I'm doing from a band called Chevelle, where the theme of the song is actually growing up, and you remember your childhood, you remember Saturday morning TV cartoons and all that kind of stuff, and then you grow up into adult life. It's like, where's the fun gone? And the specific song from that I'm about to cover as well emphasizes all that. It's all over it, and it was great to record it. And actually, because at first I didn't think it was possible, and where it is now, the instrumental's more or less there, and it's now going to get a vocalist from London on it. So yeah, that should be up hopefully soon as well. So
that's really exciting. That's really
yeah.
exciting. What sort of, I mean, of course, in sort of the early days, I guess it's always difficult to sort of nail down what kind of things you'd want your songs to be about. But what sort of ideas have you got lyric wise? Are you writing the lyrics for your own songs?
I've written at least lyrics for a couple of songs.
Okay.
One of the songs I did for the 7-Day project, called It's So Much Easier, that does have a lyrical theme to it, and it had at least a chorus and a verse in mind. So it's very, very possible, knowing the songs where they are now, for someone to come in and co-write lyrics with me for it. But as it's taken so many years just to get to this point, to get nice covers like this up for all the lovely boys and girls, and to create original content. So I'm in no rush at this point. At this point, it's more uploading the EP, seeing what people think, hopefully getting an idea for a vision, and then hopefully get another EP, but this time with some actual vocals, with actual singers on it, and then saying, what do you think? But this time, what do you really think? And then seeing what the response comes back as, and then go from there, really. At this point, there's nothing not considered at this point. All the cards are on the table at this point, the project. And like the way forward for my sound engineering and the way forward for Good Bean is kind of one of the same thing at the moment. It's just one thing will be at a certain tempo, and then something else will go faster, and then something else will go faster. So yeah, so I think you're right when you say I've been going between a lot of different things. My Instagram backs this up. So but it all comes down to timing. A lot of engineers, producers, bands, and even musicians I know will be working on a lot of different pies at the same time. But like any good pie, it takes a certain amount of time to cook. Whereas others will be ready and you'll eat it down faster than you can gobble down a McDee's. So
I love that analogy. Actually, it's quite. I like that thought of each of the pies and everything like that. That's quite cool.
Yeah, I've got loads of analogies. I've bored people with it.
Is that your next book, Danny? Well, your debut book, Danny Blackallers Analogies.
Danny's book of analogies. Yeah, maybe. But when you open the page, it just starts with like loads of lo-fi music. So you flick up it, all the page is just like loads of beats. It's just like
Beats.
or just like loads of Squid references. I don't know.
Something like that. That's really cool. So we've talked quite a lot so far about your projects, everything like that. Have we missed anything so far? Anything new at the moment?
I'm just really looking forward to seeing live music come back in August, really. Because again, from what I've read, the 1st of August we could start seeing gigs again, and hopefully see more bands and get back to grips on things, because there's a load of really good bands out there that have either been producing new material or they've been writing, and it'd be good to see a lot of those people back. The people in Flux, they're a local based kind of bluesy rock grungy band. I'm hoping to hopefully catch up with them soon and see them back on the scene, because they are a really good band.
Flux, I'll have to check them out. Have you got many? What are your sort of bands you're most looking forward to seeing after live music comes back?
Well, Rhea Plays are hopefully going to be doing an album at some point. I'm looking forward to that, but I'm just looking forward to them eventually coming down further west from where they are based in Bristol and actually playing down here, because they are an incredibly good indie band.
I've seen you post about them a couple times. So
I posted about them a lot.
Yeah.
They are incredibly good. Also a band called Black Tree Sons. I'm hoping that they'll get back on the scene and do some things. Who else is there? Stealth Moose, really good band. Hoping they'll get on with some stuff. A band called Armogan, I used to pronounce it as Armagan, and I pronounced it for months and months and months, but it's not Armagan, it's Armogan. Armogan, yeah. They're really good bands. They fuse kind of like indie elements with R&B. They're really cool. My friend in Major Wave Graphics plays bass in them as well. She's an incredibly talented musician. Fiona's also in a solo project called Easy Year. I'm hoping that she'll come back with that as well. She's making it more of an electronic project now.
Okay.
So that'll be interesting. Interesting how that play out, because actually it reminds me of Anamanaguchi, which is a American band that tell me about it. They play rock, but they are using like a hacked Nintendo console as an actual synthesizer. Like an 8-bit synthesizer. I went to see them in New York on my 21st birthday in Brooklyn, and it was a crazy show. It was really, really good. Like, it had illustration, a VJ thing going on, all kinds of crazy stuff. It was a really great show. So yeah, stuff like that would be amazing to see this side of the pond. But yeah, yeah, loads of really good bands out there. Dead Fly, they're round your way as well. Grunge Group. They've
Okay.
started rehearsing again, so they should be back on the stage soon. Really good bunch of lads. So
Mm.
yeah, I even borrowed their frontman for one of my Good Bean projects.
Did you give him back?
Hmm?
Did you give him back?
Did I give them back?
Yeah, you borrowed him, so did you give him back?
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm not a kidnapper. No, no,
Of
no. Yeah,
course
yeah,
not.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. I used the frontman Lee's a lovely bloke, and
Mm.
yeah, we worked on a project together, which I've also brought a drummer in on as well. So that's one of my ongoing Good Bean projects. So hopefully that will surface soon, because it's been sitting in my 2 mix pile for too long. It needs to be
Mm.
done.
Yeah, I know how that feels. So, for the people watching this, what would you say is the best way that they can support your work at this stage?
At this point, I would love people to search Good Bean on Bandcamp.
Hmm.
It's goodbeanmusic.bandcamp.com, I believe. Check that out. They can also search for Good Bean on Facebook. It has a Facebook page. You can also search for Good Bean on YouTube as well, because you can also find the Static X cover I did there, and the cover of A Day to Remember I did for a song called Why Walk on Water When We've Got Boats.
Very
So
cool.
good stuff.
Very cool. And as you will all have heard, there's a lot more to come from Good Bean.
Indeed, yeah.
To come.
It's a very, very big pending pile, but it's all very good and very exciting. So I look forward to getting into it and hopefully getting the CP out to start with, and then hopefully give some more details, hopefully in the coming months, and see how things go post COVID.
Yeah.
And during the lockdown, because for me the lockdown's been a big opportunity to develop Good Bean and to make it work. So I'm just hoping to get that, to maintain that progress. So
That's really good. It's good to hear that that you're sort of getting something out of the lockdown, because it feels it feels a lot of things have sort of ground to a halt, but there's also a lot that's been continuing through lockdown.
yeah,
It's good to hear that
well,
something's coming from it.
yeah, for me, it's been more than just the music. This lockdown.
Mm.
Whilst I was working in the civil service, just as the lockdown kicked in, actually, it was just after the Prime Minister's announcement on March 23rd. I got the chance to raise my hand to do the COVID-19 helpline for HMRC.
Mm.
And I was basically on the phones speaking with very anxious taxpayers, and deferred loads of people's tax. And it's right now, it's the highlight of my CV, because I managed to help defer millions and millions of pounds of tax and give some people some breathing room. So that's been a really unique opportunity, and I'm glad I've done it. But again,
Yeah.
I'm also just as proud of getting Good Bean on track and hopefully get the CP out there and get people's thoughts. So
Brilliant stuff. Brilliant stuff. I think that is have we got anything more to discuss? I think that was a good sort of ending
yeah, yeah,
to the
wrapped up
talk.
real nicely there. So yeah.
Indeed, yeah. All right. So, um, Danny, what's your Instagram and Facebook names and everything like that? Where can people find you?
It should be at Danny Blackaller on Instagram. It should be obviously looking up Good Bean on Facebook. It should be facebook.com/goodbeanmusic. It's also Good Bean Music on Bandcamp as well. As for my sound engineer exploits, I still think I've got my website somewhere. I can't give you a link, because at the moment the sound engineer officially is kind of I'm in between either relaunching my sound engineering or I'm going to change the name.
Okay.
So hopefully I'll be able to make an announcement about that in the coming months. So yeah, keep an eye out.
Okay. Are you still taking on musicians if anyone wants to
If anyone
work with
needs
you?
recording and production, they're more than welcome to get in contact. Yeah, just because I'll be posting about it. So I post quite regularly. So hopefully
That's
people
good.
will. So yeah, get in touch.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on, Danny. It's been a really, really good talk.
Yeah, you're welcome, mate.
Mm,
Yeah, appreciate coming on. So thanks for having me.
you're welcome. Is there anyone in particular that you think would be awesome to get on for another episode?
I'll have a think about it and let you know. Definitely, I'll have a
Cool.
think about it.
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much. All
Thanks,
right.
Reese. Have a good evening.
All right. Thanks, everyone. And everyone watching, thank you so much for watching. This is another long one, but I hope you got something from it. So see ya.
Ta-da!